now releasing all goblins.
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game has Max, Marie, and Nick joining me, and I'm playing my Nahiri deck, keeping Clifftop Retreat, Mistville Plains, Carekeep, Wayfarer's Bauble, Gamble, and Reconnaissance. Max is playing the Jeskai Aragorn deck, keeping Felwar Stone, Time Wipe, Mary Esquire of Rohan, Opal Palace, Evolving Wilds, and Battlefield Forge. Marie is playing her Mazzy deck, keeping Combat Celebrant, Forest, Mountain, Plains, Herald of the Pantheon, Sanctum Weaver, and a Swiftblade Vindicator. Last but not least, Nick is rocking Kosei, keeping a Forest, a Rancor, Forge of Heroes, Shadow Spear, Sakura Tribe Elder, Cartouche of Strength, and Sword of War and Peace. Marie wins the die roll and starts us off. She plays a Forest and passes. Nick plays a Forest as well and taps it to cast Shadow Spear. I play a Carekeep and cast Wayfarer's Bauble. Max has a Battlefield Forge and taps it for colorless to basic land cycle Ash Barrens. Marie has a Plains and pays 2 mana for a Starfield Mystic. Nick drops a Forest and also pays 2 for a spell, with him casting 3 visits. I play Snow-Covered Plains and then pay to activate the Bauble, sacrificing it and going to find a basic while passing. Max just plays an island and casts Felwar Stone. Marie plays a Spire Garden for turn and then pays 2 for Sanctum Weaver. She then casts a Swiftblade Vindicator and passes. Nick has a Forge of Heroes for turn and then pays 3 mana for Kosei. Once his commander's out, Nick then taps the Forge to give his commander a +1/+1 counter and passes. I play Snow-Covered Mountain and then pay 2 for Boros Signet. I then pay 1 to activate it and tap my last land to cast Reaver Cleaver, which is just a fun name, and I pass after it resolves. Max plays a Skycloud Expanse for turn and then taps enough for Aragorn. He becomes the Monarch as his commander enters and passes, drawing at his end of turn. Marie plays a Mountain and then drops a Herald of the Pantheon. Her enchantments now cost 2 colorless less, and she plays All That Glitters onto the Vindicator. She then taps the Weaver to help cast the Combat Celebrant and goes to combat. The Vindicator then goes at Nick, who takes the hit, and Marie then passes. Nick drops a Forest for turn, and then gears up Kosei with a Shadow Spear. He then enchants his commander with the Cartouche of Strength, and has Kosei fight the Vindicator. With enchantment going to the graveyard, Marie gets to add a +1/+1 counter to the Mystic, and Nick then moves to combat. He swings Kosei at me, dealing 3 and gaining 3, and then Kosei triggers, dealing 3 to each other opponent, and Nick gets to draw 3 as well. My turn has me casting Gamble in my main phase, going to find a card, and then randomly discarding a Mistvale Plains. I then cast Lightning Greaves, and once that's done, play out Pia Nalar, and then equip her with the Greaves, and pass. Max plays his own Wayfarer's Bauble, and then moves to combat. He hits Nick with Aragorn, and then passes, drawing during his end of turn thanks to being the Monarch. Marie pays 4 mana in her main phase for Mazzy, and then goes to combat. She swings all out at Nick, but doesn't exert, and after her creatures connect, she passes turn. Nick plays a Forest, and taps it to cast a Soul Ring. He then plays Sword of War and Peace, but Max counters it with an Arcane Denial. Nick then resolves a Snake Umbron to Kosei, and then a Rancor. Nick then counts up Kosei's power and decides to swing him at me. I take 6, and Marie and Max then take 6, and Nick then draws 6 from Kosei, plus an additional card thanks to the Snake Umbra. He also gains a boatload of life from Kosei having lifelink, and passes to me after that. During his end step, Max cracks the bauble to go and find a land. I play a snow-covered mountain, and then tap enough for Nahiri. I gear her up with the Greaves and the Reaver Cleaver, and move to combat. I swing Nahiri at Nick, obviously, exiling Arden off the top. Nick then takes 6 commander damage, and I get to make 6 treasure tokens. 3 of them go into casting Arden, and I get to make a Thopter token thanks to Pia and Nalar. At this point, Nick and Max remember they had Arcane Denial draw triggers, and draw before we move to Max's turn. Max plays a tapped Irrigated Farmland, and then pays 4 for a Smothering Tithe. Moving to combat, he hits Nick with Aragorn, and passes back to Marie. Marie plays a Forest, and then drops Danitha. Max offers to let Marie become the Monarch to hopefully draw into something better, but only if she swings at him with the Herald. Before this though, we also realize that Mazzy would have actually pumped Kosei on Nick's last attack, so I correct the life totals. Marie then goes to combat, and Herald goes at Max, while the rest go at Nick, but once more she doesn't exert the Celebrant. Marie then passes, drawing at the end of turn, from being the Monarch and not paying to the Smothering Tithe. Nick draws and doesn't pay as well. He plays out Sword of Sinew and Steel, and then gears up Kosei with it. We then see the Great Hand shading the field for only 2 green because Kosei is huge, and Nick taps it to help cast a Reclamation Sage. It enters, blowing up the Smothering Tithe. Moving to combat, Nick then goes at Max for 10, and as he takes the 10, Marie and I also take 10, which has Nick gaining 30 life. He also draws 11 cards, 10 from Kosei and 1 from the Snake Umbra. He also gets a Sword of Sinew and Steel trigger, blowing up my Reaver Cleaver, and with all of that done, he then moves to discard and passes to me. I play Castle Ardenvale and then move to combat. I swing Nahiri at Nick, exiling a Pure Steel Paladin off the top with her on attack trigger, and Nick just takes the hit. In my second main phase, I then cast the Pure Steel Paladin, and this makes me a Thopter from Pia, and I pass to Max. Max has a land for turn, and swings Aragorn at Nick, who doesn't block. In his second main phase, Max then casts Scourge of the Thrones, and then Tajik, Blade of the Legion, and he passes to Marie. Marie has a Verduran Enchantress coming in, and then casts an Angelic Gift onto Mazzy, gaining a life. She also draws a card from the Enchantress trigger, and then the enchantment as it comes into play. She plays a Plains for turn, and then taps the Sanctum Weaver to help cast a Mesa Enchantress. She then enchants Mazzy with the Ethereal Armor, gaining another life, and drawing 2 more cards. She swings Mazzy at Nick, who gets her own +2/+0 trample trigger, and she swings the Celebrant at Max, after she promises not to attack him with everything next turn if he won't block it. Max agrees, and she exerts it as she does so. This untaps her creatures, i.e. just Mazzy at this point, and she gains another combat step after this one. Max and Nick then take the hits, and moving to her next combat step, she swings Mazzy at Nick again, which gives Mazzy another trigger and gives her another +2/+0 until end of turn, which is just enough to take Nick out with commander damage, and with nothing else, she passes to me. I draw, and cast Masterwork of Ingenuity as a copy of my Lightning Greaves, drawing a card from the Pure Steel Paladin. I then play out Sensei's Divining Top and activate it. I move to combat, swinging Nahiri at Marie, and exiling a Sword of Hearth and Home off the top. She blocks Nahiri with the Herald, and I then move to my second main phase. I cast the sword for free, I get to make a Thopter token and draw a card from the Paladin. I move some equipment around so I can gear her up with it, and then pass my turn to Max. Max has an island for turn, and taps enough for a time wipe, putting Aragorn back to hand, and then wiping the board. He then recasts Aragorn, becoming the Monarch again, and then hits me with Tajik as he moves to combat. Max then draws at the end of turn, and passes to Marie. Marie plays a Plains, and casts a Jukai Naturalist, and then enchants it with the exiled Angelic Gift, drawing a card as it enters.
She then enchants it with the also exiled Ethereal Armor, and once that's done, passes to me. I draw and recast Nahiri for less because of all the equipment I have on the field. And I then resolve an Imperial Recruiter. I tutor for a creature card that has 2 power or less, revealing Ketis and putting it to hand. I then gear up Nahiri with the Sword of Hearth and Home, and then the Lightning Greaves. I swing her at max for 7, forgetting about her on-attack trigger sadly. I then resolve my sword trigger at least, blinking the Recruiter and going to find a basic. I find a tap Snow-Covered Plains, and reveal Stoneforge Mystic as I pass to Max. Max casts Eowyn, Fearless Knight, who upon entering, exiles Marie's Jukai Naturalist. Once that's done, he casts the Resurgence half of the card, giving his creatures First Strike, Vigilance, and netting himself an extra combat step. He then goes at me with a team, and Tajik gets pumped by +5/+5, plus Max gains some life. He then moves to his next combat step, with Eowyn going at me to take me out, and the rest go at Marie, with Tajik getting yet another +5/+5, and Marie then drops to 6. With nothing else, he passes. Marie untaps and draws. She plays a land and then recasts Mazzy, but realizes she can't block with Aragorn's on-attack trigger, and knowing she has no outs in hand, scoops it up so he can move on to the next game. Game review time. This game was 39 minutes and 45 seconds, and a lot of it was the fact that Nick kept bashing everyone in the face at the same time. Kosei is awesome, and I love the mono green commander that requires so much work, but the payoff is so good. I think what really pushed him over the top was the Shadow Spear, since it was gaining him so much life, and he really was going to have to be taken down by commander damage, which Marie was happy to do. It was kind of funny to see that Mazzy actually pumped Kosei, and we only caught it after the first attack, so we had to correct it a little bit later. Other than that, I think Marie did a great job playing Mazzy. She got to cast enchantments, she drew a lot of cards. It's just a shame that she wasn't able to take out Max at the same time as she was taking out Nick, since I don't think I was as big of a threat as either of them. I think Max did a great job flying under the radar, basically not messing with anyone so everyone thought he was a friend, and he was pretty decent giving away that Monarch so that he would be able to just basically buy good favor for people. I was not expecting a double Tajik attack in one turn, and that +10/+10 to him is pretty brutal. Nahiri did exactly what she's been built to do, which is hopefully try and cast some equipment for free, and I got to cast my favorite sword in the deck, which is Sword of Hearth and Home, and get some decent value. Blinking stuff like the Imperial Recruiter and or Stoneforge Mystic is always great, especially since it's coupled with finding a land.
This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.